Hey everybody, it's day 16, Budget Watch 2017. Here we are again at the state capitol. Once again, it's too windy for me to be outside, and I left my life vest in the car, so I didn't want to broadcast without it inside. We're drowning. We need any kind of help we can get. So a quick two things today. One, a quick summary of where we're at today, as of what happened yesterday and this morning, and then secondly, I'll talk a little bit about marriage counseling. As it relates to what happens up here at the Capitol. So first of all, what happened yesterday and this morning is honestly not much. There was a lot of discussion. The cigarette tax, $1.50 a pack, went up for a vote, and it failed. Failed by a vote of 66 to 30. Was that 31? As in the House. And so because that failed, that it is eligible to go to a vote of the people, but it has to pass the Senate as well, and as always, the Senate's kind of a rogue agent this year, and they're saying it might not pass over there. So that's a bummer. There are some proposals being floated that's been more palatable to the industry, meaning to big tobacco, for a 67-cent per pack increase and a 50-cent per pack increase. Here's the deal with that, is if you look at the data for tobacco cessation and what impacts that, anything less than like $1.50 is a sweet spot, right? That's the point where you maybe get the most revenue for the state, and it translates to a pretty healthy decrease in smoking rates. Oklahoma already has one of the highest rates of smoking in the country, which is no surprise because we have one of the highest rates of heart attacks, heart disease, lung cancer, COPD. So we could definitely go for a big decrease in smoking rates. Everybody knows smoking's terrible for you. Even my friends and people I know that smoke know it's terrible for them. No one's like, man, this is really improving my health. They continue to smoke because it's addictive, and they're hooked. They've been doing it, and many of them are trying to quit. Like, smoking rates in the United States are at the lowest point they've ever been. And we're trying to get it down. It would help the state tremendously, both financially and health-wise. So anything less than $1.50 is just ridiculous. We get less money and no health benefit. It's a lose-lose. So I can't believe that we, as a state who sued Big Tobacco, got a bunch of money, and the TSET dollars have been really great for Oklahoma. I can't believe that we are even considering listening to the industry, to the Big Tobacco, about how we should tax them. That's ridiculous. I talked to a friend this morning whose family owns some cigarette shops, and while they are obviously like not super thrilled with the idea, like, they get the health benefit, and they kind of know like their business is on borrowed time. So there's that. So tobacco tax failed, and then while they held the vote open for like 20 minutes, and while they did, this is in the House, while that was being voted on, the Senate held a press conference to say, hey, we got a plan. Here's the deal. It's got a tobacco tax, it's got a fuel tax, all this stuff, and a bunch of other things. And so what was funny about that was that they are announcing a plan that includes the fuel tax, which already died. The House Democrats said no way, no how on that. So they included something that's already known to fail, and they included the cigarette tax, which was in the process of failing, like, while they're holding the press conference. So once again, like, this world is not that big, and communication is terrible. I have people it's weird to me, people in the House that have never met, like, House reps have never met some of the senators. There's only 151 of them. I've met most of them in the past year. It's weird that they work in the same building every day and don't ever have a chance to, like, meet people. So if it was me, if I was up there, I'd at some point go door to door. Don't they have some kind of, like, mixer or something? Some kind of junior senior dance where they get to go, like, meet people? I don't know. That's weird to me. So anyway, so the Senate put out a plan, press conference. Here's our plan. Here's what it is. Immediately after that, Speaker McCall has a press conference that says, this plan sucks. Fuel tax is a non-starter. This is dead on arrival. Also, cigarette tax just failed, so this is going nowhere. So that happened. And then Scott Inman, House Minority Leader Scott Inman, held a press conference that said, also, this is not going anywhere. On the cigarette tax, the Republicans and the Democrats, some of them both voted for it, and some voted against it. So it's split on both parties. It did not go down party lines. And the votes, the 34 votes against it, were pretty evenly divided between Republicans and Democrats. And so Of course, the Republicans blame the Democrats for not having their whole caucus vote for it. The Democrats blame the Republicans for not having their whole caucus vote for it. And the rest of us sitting in the gallery were just like, WTF, man. Like, I get the political reasons on both sides. The weird thing is that everyone agrees. Like, everybody wants this. Everyone's for it. It's just like how it's being out there. Now, I guarantee, and we've heard this from the very beginning of session, that if the gross production tax were to go up for a vote and pass, everything else would just fall like dominoes. Like, ding, 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 ding. It would just... They could have come in this morning, run GPT first. I almost guarantee it would pass. By my count, me and some others that have been like asking folks how they'd vote, we've got 72 votes that are a yes or a leaning yes on gross production tax in the House. That's 72 people that would talk to us, that would say yes, that we would vote for that. So that's only 4 votes away, and I guarantee those other 4 votes are on the fence. We only have a couple of hard no's on that. Everyone else is for it, so that's almost there. So if they put GPT up, it would pass like this morning. They could have run that. They could have run SIGA right after that. It would have passed. If they, maybe fuel, especially if they bundled it with something else, fuel would pass. Honestly, if they bundled, I guess they can't really bundle it, but if they ran it, it might pass. Some limitations to itemized deduction would pass. In raising the tax on some services like fur storage and boats and a few other things would pass. Like, they could, I guarantee they could have passed $1.3 billion, filled our budget gap, repaid what we owe, and had money for a teacher pay raise, and restored the earned income tax credit by 11:30 when the House recessed. They could have done that this morning, and they didn't. They would say, we didn't have the votes. Listen, if you don't put your name on the board, we don't know if you have votes or not. You can tell me you don't have the votes. I can tell you do, and one of us is right and one of us is wrong. I'd love to find out who that is. I'd love to find out if I'm the one that's wrong. At least then we know who voted no. We know who it is we need to put pressure on, who we need to talk to. Maybe they haven't heard the right story yet. This stuff really matters. So this leads me to my next point about marriage counseling. Right. So some of you guys know my background's in mental health. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I've been doing that for, I don't know, 10, 12 years now. And a lot of the clients that I've worked with are couples who are married or engaged or dating or whatever, who are having some kind of rough patch. Sometimes it's really rough. Sometimes it's at a point where they don't know if this relationship is going to work out or not. And so they come to a counselor to find out, like, is this repairable? Like, is this irreparable, or is there a path forward we can get back on the same page? And in almost every case, the issue is that people are, they feel unheard by their partner, or they feel like that there's some kind of animosity there, some kind of trauma or hurt that has not been fixed yet. There's one of our Together Oklahoma Coalition folks. So anyway, couples that fight. And so there's a author, researcher, John Gottman. He and his wife have the Gottman Institute, and they have done some amazing research about relationships and what makes them work and what makes them don't. And they can predict with like 96% certainty after a 1-hour observation whether or not a couple is going to be able to stay together in 5 years. They can predict based on watching them interact. And there's kind of like the 4 horsemen of the relationship apocalypse that they've identified as being the things that are not a for sure bad news, but pretty bad news. And one of the biggest ones is resentment, right? This like that underlying like burning anger, resentment you have for like contemptuousness that you have for your partner. And if you pay attention to Twitter at all, man, the last couple of days, there's definitely some of that going on, namely between Republicans and Democrats in the House, but somewhat even between the House and the Senate. And that makes me worried, right? First of all, I can't imagine talking to my coworkers the way that some of the folks up here talk to one another. There's been some folks I've worked with over the years that I definitely didn't like. And you know, we've had some maybe heated discussions, but I try to always have an underlying level of respect. And I ran into an older fellow today at our coffee event this morning at Elemental, who saw the buttons and the sign. He's like, "What are you guys trying to fix?" And we explained it to him, and he said, like he's been doing this a long time, and he understands how difficult it is. He's been friends with the former speaker and Harold Wright up here as well, and we had a good conversation. And he was like, "Man, you know what? This is there's people I don't always like, but at least I can have a conversation." I think we all totally agree with that. So I'm as a mental health professional, like I'm a little concerned about the rhetoric that gets thrown around, and some of it's for politics and just for theater. And I'll be honest, I think all of us are pretty sick of that. The people in this building as well. So everything I've heard comes down to, I hear two names keep coming up, and two names only: Speaker Charles McCall, and Senate Pro Tem Mike Schultz. That they are the ones, the leadership is the cap on us getting the revenue we need, particularly in the Senate. In fact, Speaker McCall is the one calling out Senator Schultz and saying, well, he won't hear it, so why should we talk about it? Here's my challenge to the OK House. Frickin' put it up for a vote, pass it. Then it's just got to go through one chamber, and all this attention that we're trying to send to both of you, we will direct over to the Senate, and I'll go camp. We'll stand outside Schultz's office all day if we can. We'll get people up there, stand around. I know that his office is getting your phone calls, and I thank you for that, because I've heard from everybody that his assistant has been a little curt with them. No disrespect to her, she's got a big job, and she's the one that has to answer all these phone calls. But man, just keep it coming. Try to keep calling Schultz, keep calling McCall, tell them what you support, and tell them to put it to a vote. Guarantee, from everything I've heard from both parties,